Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm recording a new video podcast so you can listen and see us at the same time on the Whole Athlete Podcast page. And today I have a new guest co-host with me to talk about how we can burn fat and how we can measure it. His name's Dr. Joe Anderson from Seattle, Washington. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Debbie.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You get the hat version today. I just actually finished work, but I had an infrared sauna my third time. I'm trying to do this detoxification program, so I get the hat on today.
That's great.
So you're working for a LevL company. Tell us a little bit about your background and what LevL is. We'll get to, and we're kind of dive into what we should do to learn how to burn fat.
Sure. Well, my background is in engineering. I have a PhD in chemical engineering, but I have a lot of research experience, about 20 years in physiology, particularly lung physiology. So how do the lungs work, kind of the physics and the chemistry of the lungs, and measuring chemicals that come from the lungs into the exhaled breath. So I have quite a bit of background there, but I've also moved a little more into the physiology of fat metabolism due to a chemical that we measured in breath called acetone. I'm sure we'll talk about that today.
Yes. Yeah. So, and you're in Seattle, and we ran into you guys. I keep coming across. We're meant to be friends with the LevL people. So your company that you're helping, you started this product. And why don't you talk a little bit about that and why you guys created it and what's the benefit of it? We'll get into that more.
Sure. We have a product called LevL, and LevL is a way to understand your fat metabolism, the amount of fat that you're burning. The way it came about was the founder of the company has a full-time job doing some manufacturing work in a manufacturing company, but he and his wife got to that point in their lives saying, we have a few kids and the fat is not coming off as easy as it used to come off, right? And I think as you get older, you realize that, not when you're in your 20s. So he is a very curious guy and likes to figure things out. And so he went through the scientific literature and saw that he could really get a better gauge of his fat metabolism by measuring a chemical in his breath. And so he kind of said, I think I can build a sensor to detect that chemical, which then will allow me to understand what diet and exercise choices are increasing my fat metabolism with the final goal of losing fat.
That's right on, because that's what I keep talking about and why I think I keep running into you guys and want to do more with your company is that, as I always say, I think every podcast lately is for 25 years is I've been a personal trainer, and I keep telling people I can't just help you lose weight by exercising more. It just does not happen. And as we get older, everyone says you're getting older, things don't happen. But I really do believe it's what we're eating and what I call the holistic method. And what I'm learning as I become a nutritional therapy practitioner is that stress affects everything. If you want to be a fat burner or sugar burner, what you eat makes a difference. Metabolic typing, your sleep, your daily movement. I mean, there's so many other factors that we talk about all the time on the show that contribute to being a fat burner or not. And I think a good way we don't really know if we're burning fat or not. And I do metabolic testing in the past that we can do a resting test and put them on the treadmill and see what their RQ value is, where the carbs fat switch over, and a metabolic efficiency, we call it the metabolic crossover point. But what you guys have is so easy, something we can do every day. So talk a little bit about what are we measuring? Did you bring one over there? Can you show it on the video?
I don't have one with me. That's too bad. I completely spaced out about it. Probably too excited
for the video.
Probably too excited to talk about it. But I think one of the things you bring up is the fact that there's a lot of scientific ways that are very complex to try to measure your metabolism, whether that's your sugar metabolism or your fat metabolism, but they're not simple. And I think on top of that, layered on top of that, is the body has different ways of metabolizing fat in a sense. And what I mean by that is when you're younger, your fat metabolism kind of goes, your metabolism is very high, but as you get older, your metabolism slows. And so you've got to kind of pull in all the other resources that you kind of ignored when you're younger: sleep, diet, exercise, stress, all sorts of stuff, right? That you could kind of get away with just ignoring. Now you've got to kind of rein those in and understand how they're affecting your life. And the bottom piece of all this is everyone's metabolism is different because we all have different DNAs. And your DNA is what's driving your cellular machinery, right? The machine in your cell that's actually going to process fat is different for everyone. And so how that machinery responds to stress or to exercise or to sleep is going to be different for everyone as well, and it's going to change over time. And so these are all things that are, as you can imagine, are complex. And what the goal of LevL is to try to simplify this by understanding your fat metabolism so that you can understand what changes in your habits, so to speak, are going to modify your ability to burn fat. So I think that's a great place to start. Like you said, there's so many ways to measure them, but they're all clinical, research-oriented. They're not simple. So what the LevL device does, like I said, is it gives you an indication of your fat burn, the rate of fat metabolism, the rate of fat leaving your body, essentially what you're burning, right? And the way it does that is it measures a chemical that's kind of a co-product, or you could call it a byproduct of fat metabolism. So the more fat you're burning, the more your body produces this chemical called acetone. In fact, what's really...
It's not like nail polish remover, acetone.
Yeah, it is. Acetone is a nail polish remover. It's at a much, much higher concentration, and we'll talk about that. And also acetone, you may be familiar with it with diabetic ketoacidosis. Might as well get that out there. Your diabetic ketoacidosis, the acetone levels there are thousands of times higher than what we're going to be talking about here. But the idea is when your fat metabolism increases, the fat gets into your liver, one of the organs in your chest cavity or your thoracic cavity, and it gets some of that fat gets converted into these chemicals called ketone bodies. And one of the ketone bodies that gets created is acetone. And one of the great things about acetone is it's small and it volatilizes, meaning it moves from a liquid to a gas very easily, so it can get into the lung air and then it can come out in your exhaled breath. And that's what we're trying to make a measurement of. But essentially, the more fat you're burning, the more acetone that's present, and that we can detect that with this simple device.
So fat metabolism, we want to be burning fat, not sugar. And that's what we've talked about last few episodes. I did a whole podcast on with myself, just talking about how we should be fat burners, not sugar burners. So we've been talking about this a lot, and how burning fat and metabolizing fat for fuel is breaking down in our liver, and then we're having the byproducts are fatty acids, and you said are ketones, but there's beta hydrut, I never can say it right, beta hydrut,
I'll just walk you through this.
Yeah, because I can't say
when
it.
the fat gets into the liver, it can go into two paths, so to speak, and we call those chemical pathways. One is, like you said, those fats can get broken down and get converted into energy in the liver, and the liver will use that energy. The second pathway is the fat gets converted into these ketone bodies. The mother ketone body is acetoacetate. So that's the main one, that's the first one that gets made. Acetoacetate gets pretty easily converted into beta-hydroxybutyrate using a catalyst or an enzyme. So beta-hydroxybutyrate, that's going to be found in the blood. That's kind of the one, if you've ever seen these blood tests, where you can prick your finger and measure ketones on your blood, that's beta-hydroxybutyrate. But acetoacetate, that mother chemical, can also be converted in a one-way reaction to acetone, and that just is a one-way reaction, so you get all three of those that are present. They all appear, acetone is typically measured in the breath, acetoacetate would be typically measured in the urine, and beta-hydroxybutyrate would be measured in the blood. It's just the way that the technology has kind of evolved, so to speak.
Well, that's good to know if people are listening that are into being keto adapted and being ketosis. It's, I heard keto is in and paleo's out. And the new thing is the buzzword is ketosis. And people don't really understand what it is. And think, people are familiar with hearing about the urine test to test your ketone level and do the blood test, like instead of testing your insulin, blood sugar level, insulin, you can also do your ketones on the finger prick test. But the breath analyzer why do you think is it easier, simpler, people do at home than pricking themselves and having to pee on a stick?
Yeah, no, obviously, I work with LevL, but I really do think it's a lot easier. And here's the reason is, number one, it's non-invasive, right? You're not pricking your finger. And some people say, well, that's not a big deal, but we've pricked our finger quite a bit, and it's amazing how bruised your fingers get after a while, even with these very thin pricks. The test strips for blood are fairly expensive. They're about $4 to $5 each test, so that can be kind of costly. The other thing with the breath is that we have a way to track and trend it. So we have an app attached to the device that will store all your data. So every day you make a measurement, it gets put in there, and you can add in your body fat mass or your body weight, so we can track and trend all that stuff. But I think one of the best things for me about it is it's simple to do. It's simply a deeper breath in, you hold it, and you exhale very easily, comfortably through a simple breath pod, which is just a container that holds your breath, and then you put it in the device. So it's very painless and or pain-free, I'd say, and very easy to use, and then it allows all the data to be stored and tracked and trending.
Okay. So it's a small container. I should have told you, remind you to get one so we can see it. So it's a breath test. You blow in it, you breathe in, and then you breathe out to valve, like you're doing your drunk driving test. Not that I've done that. But you see when you're drunk driving that you have the little breath analyzer. So it's something similar to that. You breathe out into it, and then you put it in the machine, and then it gives you a number. So tell us, kind of walk through that part of it, that you do the breath part, but what information, how does that all work in that little compartment to figure out what we do?
And I think one of the things, sometimes I gloss this over, but one of the things we did when we designed it is to have, when you exhale into this pod, it's just a little canister, is that it doesn't provide a lot of restriction. So it's easy to provide an exhalation. And that's important for folks who may have some lung issues or compromised function of their lungs. Once it's in the pod, then you simply put it into the desktop device, and you close the lid. And what it does is it pulls that breath across a nanosensor. And the nanosensor can detect parts per million of acetone. So one molecule of acetone one molecule of acetone in a million other molecules, right?
Wow.
And so it measures that over the course of about 20 seconds, and then it provides a reading right on the front of the device from 1 to 6. And those numbers are equal to parts per million in your breath. So if a 2 shows up on the LevL score, that means you have 2 parts per million in your breath. That number then gets relayed through Bluetooth to your iOS phone, so an Apple phone currently, and it gives you a little richer detail in terms of actually a decimal. So instead of just 2, you may be 1.8, you may be 2.4 parts per million.
That's the millimoles.
Yeah, well, parts per million is a little bit different than millimole, but yes, it's a concentration. That's correct.
Most people that are following ketosis, they read about, should have your ketones to be a certain level of millimoles, 1 to 3 or 5 or whatever it is. They're measuring that to see if they're in ketosis. So we're finding out if we're burning fat, but does it mean, this is when it gets tricky, I find. Like, is it telling us that I'm in ketosis because I have those numbers, or does it just say I'm burning fat, or what's the difference?
Well, in some sense, there's an overlap in that terminology. The ketosis really is an indication of how high your ketone levels are. And when we say ketones, that's the beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, acetone, right? Those are your ketone bodies. It's somewhat of a misnomer for the chemistry folks out there. But you're right. So it's ketosis, but the ketone bodies are indicative of fat metabolism. So the more fat you're burning, the higher ketosis level you have. And I think one of the things you talked about is the millimolar level. So that's a concentration of a chemical in blood. Is typically they're measured, a lot of times they're measured in millimolar. And the beta-hydroxybutyrate, if you're just sitting here and you don't have much fat metabolism going on like myself, you're at a 0.1. But if you want to kind of crank it up and get into that phrase, people are familiar with this idea of nutritional ketosis. Somewhere around a 0.5 is kind of the threshold they see. But even if you're at a 0.3, that means you're moving towards an elevated state of fat metabolism.
So I think that's gets tricky is who needs to be in ketosis. If you have cancer, if you have some autism, Parkinson's, stuff like that, or if people are, type 2 diabetes. But what if you are just someone that is an endurance athlete, for the athletes out there who wants to be a better fat burner, what we call metabolic efficient, that we're able to have metabolic flexibility, go back to burning fat, then burn sugar, and be able to swap back and forth. So how would this help us use this tool to become a fat burner? Not that you just do this, you burn fat. You have to change your lifestyle habits, right? Like we said, the holistic method that we're teaching people how to eat real foods and find out what carbs, protein, fat you need. So you will test this and you'll find out if you're burning fat based on your nutrition and your rest of the elements we talk about, right?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing in that question is how do you develop a healthy lifestyle that maybe prevents you from just being a sugar burner, which seems to be that if you're just simply a sugar burner, you may have a predisposition towards type 2 diabetes, and that may lead you towards that path of gaining type 2 diabetes in older age. So how can you kind of make your body move, like you said, have that metabolic flexibility between fat metabolism and sugar metabolism? And this would be a way of demonstrating to yourself, you know what, I need to cut back some of these sugars. I need to allow my body to kind of allow it to use fat more so than just simply sugars. And using a device like LevL would say, okay, you know what, I'm elevated, I'm above what most people are, which would be a 1 if you're on a standard American diet, 1 part per million. And what we've seen in the scientific literature, and we've seen it in our data as well, is if you can get 2 parts per million, so if you can double it or higher, then you're in an elevated fat metabolism. And so you're going to be burning fat more than you would if you're just in a standard American diet. And so that gives you, start to see that flexibility to say, okay, if I can keep this up for a few days, that means I'm burning fat. And then if you fall out of it, then that's okay. You can say, well, I shouldn't have eaten that entire pizza by myself. And the next day I'll try something different.
Yeah, well, that's what I think it'd be a helpful tool for people to use that they can monitor each day. Would you do this each day at least once, or what do you suggest people?
Yeah, so what we suggest is that you do it in the morning. And the reason in the morning, you can kind of think you've had the overnight fast. If you've had a drink or two the night before, that's burned off. If you had something in your mouth, that's gone. So in the morning, you have a baseline condition that's really stable and well controlled. And so right when you wake up, you provide a breath sample. You may have morning breath, but that won't affect the sample. And it allows you to provide that baseline sample. And then every single day, if you do it in the same day, you do it in a very similar fashion, the same breathing pattern, you can have repeatable samples that you can compare, Tuesday versus Wednesday versus Thursday, and then start to understand the tracking and the trending of, I went out with my guys on Wednesday night. We had the beers and we watched, the game or whatever, and my level's down today on Thursday. Okay, well, I had a great time. I'll work on that today and I'll work on that tomorrow to bring my breath acetone level up and know that I'm going to burn a little more fat.
So I'm laughing because I always call that client account or retention program. I have clients that go Wednesday nights, they work out to 6 o'clock at night, and then they all go to this local burger place down the street and drink beers. And we went a few times, and they have drinks and they have French fries, salad. I'm like, okay, this client retention program, you guys aren't doing what I'm promoting. So put the life into living once in a while, but then you get back to it the next day and hopefully start to clean it up. But I think doing something, I'm looking for a tool to help people burn fat and teach them what change they do each day will affect their fat burning. And if we want to not necessarily just only burn fat and lose weight, but we want to feel better, and we want to slow the aging process down, and we want to perform better in sports, and we want to sleep better. And I think all the stuff that I learned in nutritional therapy, the effects of sugar and stress impacts everything. And for your health, if you're a sugar burner, I think you're dropping down off those years of living and cutting back. So I think it's really becoming an epidemic with not only stress and people living life as a race with their our connection to being always on and doing too much every day, but also just our fast way of eating on the go and our sugars we grab, and even if we think we're eating healthy organic food, it's usually filled with carbohydrates that are mostly sugar and refined carbs. So I would think this is a great tool to keep people motivated, to keep them on track, right?
That's a great piece. At the end of the day, this tool is going to help you form a healthy lifestyle. It's going to form those habits that allows you to understand these are the things that I can do that'll improve my health, and these are the things that perhaps I shouldn't do, but I'm going to do them anyhow. But I know the consequences, and I know if I do those things, whether it's stay up really late at night and get a poor night of sleep, or whether it's kind of stress out about the fact my team lost the championship, or whatever it happens to be, I can understand the effect of that on my body, and then I can figure out how to manage that by yourself or with a coach. I think a lot of these are going to require a coach to kind of intervene to help you figure out how to optimize your health and wellness. But you're absolutely right. I think one of the things science seems to be demonstrating that the sugar, the kind of large amounts of sugar that we've been having may play an inflammatory role in our vasculature, which may be contributing to some of this things. Well, they're still, it seems somewhat obvious, but in terms of the data is starting to come out seems to indicate that the sugar is causing these pots, kind of putting these little pockets on the arterial walls that maybe allow the fats to then sit in and form that plaque on the walls. I'm not an expert in that, but that definitely seems it's not a far stretch, so to speak, when you see some of this data.
Yeah, it's amazing, just stuff I'm learning in school about glycation and just, so much. Every module we talk about nutritional therapy, it all gets back to sugar. And one of our big things is digestion is a big foundation to teach people how to digest their food. And I think that's a couple podcasts ago, we did a video on this too, everyone must watch, with John Jennis, my teacher, who started a company called Mio Energetics that does essential oil in the back of your head. It's called vagal tone, to help you stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. So when you're eating, you're relaxed and you're able to digest your food properly. Because I think a lot of times, and I know as I'm working with more of my clients on my nutritional therapy skills, is that people are eating while they're, podcasting on the computer, walking, driving the car. So we're shutting off that, rest and digest part of the process of our brain that needs to digest food properly and get the whole chain of events occur afterwards. So if we're eating in that sympathetic state, I think that's a big, huge factor. And then our blood sugar, we talk all the time on the podcast about sugar, but blood sugar regulation. Is your blood sugar steady? And that's why I like to teach people in my sugar detox program, is the goal is not to have the spikes of the insulin and just to steady it out. So I think having something to measure, and people need to visually see, is this working for me, and what protein carb fat ratio I need, that if it works or not. So question for you is, if from your training and what you guys have been working with people, is doing a super low carb diet always needed to be beneficial results on your level?
So
20 grams a day.
Yeah. So what you're referring to, that 20 grams per day, is kind of this idea, the very low carbohydrate diets that really force your body to burn fat because you just don't have any sugar available. But no, LevL is really a device that's going to measure fat metabolism, elevation of fat metabolism, and it can be due to lots of different reasons. So one of them is no sugar in your diet. One of them could be no sugar in your diet because of your fasting, right? So your body has to use the stored body fat. But the other one, as you move along that spectrum, is just simply calorie restriction. So you keep your same diet composition, and that can be 40% sugar, 40% fat, 20% protein, or whatever it may be, but you cut back the number of calories. So instead of consuming your 2,000 calories that you need daily for your body to function, you only bring in 1,500. The other 500 are supplied by your body stores, so you're burning more fat because it's coming from your body stores. So there's all sorts of, any of the diets out there, we're really, I don't really like this phrase, but diet agnostic. I mean, we really don't, or diet independent. So whatever diet you like to choose, if it's going to elevate your fat metabolism, this device will measure it because it's simply measuring a byproduct of elevation in fat metabolism. It does not simply matter what diet. In fact, another way to think of it is your fat metabolism can elevate with exercise. So let's say that you go out and do a long, steady bike ride for a period of time, maybe an hour. You can see your acetone level rise over that time period if you have the right conditions. So that's obviously not a nutritional effect. That's an exercise effect. So what I'm trying to get at is this device is simply measuring elevations in fat metabolism.
Well, that's what, going back to athletes, and originally in the show we focus more on triathlon, endurance events, long runs, and it's more teaching people metabolic efficiency that you're using fat for fuel, because if you're going for a 5-hour bike ride and have to run afterwards when you're doing triathlon, that we need to be burning fat for fuel, or else if you're sugar burning, you have to take in all this gel and all this garbage every 15 to 30 minutes to keep fueled and energized. But I think for athletes to figure out what they can take, because not everyone needs to do such low carbohydrate to be fat burning. And I think it'd be interesting to see what, doing a study with LevL and how much, what I can eat, like you said, what everyone's individuals. So what do we need based on their exercise and their genetic and their ancestral background?
Yeah, and you've hit on all the factors, right? So this is the other thing that's nice about LevL is it really moves us towards this individualized measurement. So the measurement that's really customized for each individual about their own body. And like you said, for example, you may get away with, you can eat 100 grams of sugar and the rest be protein and fat. And for me, I maybe can only get away with 50 or whatever it happens to be, or maybe you can have a different mixture. So the idea of the glycemic index and how all those calories get put together in your stomach and then dumped into your bloodstream. Maybe that can be different as well. So you can modulate how much sugar is getting into your blood over time, and then you can increase and optimize your fat metabolism that way. So I think there's, as you can tell, there's a lot of factors we can talk about.
Yeah.
But I think what's great about this is it really puts the measurement or the understanding of fat metabolism through the measurement of acetone into the end consumer's hands. And then with that information, they can, with their own insight or with a health coach, they can go and really optimize their health and wellness.
I would love to just see how it works with people, because I train all different types of bodies, people, and different lifestyle habits. And so many people have so much stress, and their adrenals are hyperadrenic or they're hypoadrenic. So what we talked about before is that every stress response is a sugar response, and how to give people that kind of biofeedback and almost how you can biohack your own, how I need to relax and de-stress and to test if I'm burning fat, because if you're stressed out, you're not going to be burning fat, I would think, from what I'm learning.
Yeah, and a lot of that, if you, from what it appears, is, for example, if you don't get enough sleep, your body needs energy, and so it kind of starts the craving cycle. And a lot of times that craving cycle involves obviously eating more calories, but sometimes those calories end up being the sugar calories, right? The calories that aren't the good ones for you, you're craving that because you got to keep your body energized to keep moving forward. And so you're right. So all those things kind of feed together, and to understand that with this measurement, a kind of a biofeedback measurement, to say, oh, you know what, something I did over the last 24 hours is certainly hurting my ability to optimize my acetone measurement, which would then imply your fat metabolism. Then that can help you make the changes. But you're right, all those features of stressed out, overworked, overtaxed systems can certainly allow you to kind of hone in and say, these are the things that I'm doing that I need to exclude or minimize in my life.
I'm just laughing because I'm just thinking all these people I know that drink wine every night. You know, they have like 2-3 glasses before bed. They're like, oh, I can't lose weight. Well, I can't get rid of the alcohol every night after dinner. And then when they have dinner, then they don't stop until they go to bed. So there's just so much. I think it'd be really good to have people to be able to do this. And do they have it you have people have it, like we'll have it in Fitness Forward Studio, hopefully. But do the individuals get it for at home, like a different version?
Yeah, that's a great question. And then I want to kind of tell a little bit of a story. There's two different versions. There's a home version that you can have at your home, and it's kind of got what we call a Jack and Jill. So there's 2 breath pods, one for you and one for someone else in your house.
It's like a Sonicare toothbrush. You get 2.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously with probably heads, I guess. But yeah, that's the idea. So then you and someone else in your house can make measurements. There's guest feature on it as well. But one of the great things about the technology is that if you have one in your house and then you have one at your nutritionist or your health coach has one, you can make measurements there, and they're synced together on your phone. So the measurements you make in both locations will show up on your iPhone app. So you can track, so it doesn't matter when you make the measurement, you can track and turn it anywhere. One of the things that I kind of heard you say, in a sense, is the idea of accountability, right? You get home, you're tired, you want to relax and unwind, and that one glass of wine turns into a bottle, right? And you have too many glasses. So this allows you to kind of keep accountable. There's a story we had with one of the LevL clients, one of the beta unit users. Mother-daughter came in, same diet, lived in the same house. The daughter's elevated fat metabolism based on the acetone reading, and the mother is just your normal standard, didn't move. And the daughter's scratching her head saying, I've seen my mom, and she doesn't cheat. I don't get it. Well, the accountability piece was they got to talking, and they realized that the mother every night would reward herself. So at 9 o'clock, she'd say, I did a great job today, which she obviously did. And then she'd eat a lot of candy. And so that would just kill her. Yeah.
Self-sabotage is always up here.
So it's kind of a measurement to then have the conversation to say, how do we help you parlay that hard work into the next day as opposed to sabotaging it? How do we give yourself some sort of reward without destroying all the work you did?
I can put little cameras in people's houses that I could spy out of. Because this way, then I can have them on the app, right? So I can see, like, my zone. I can see if people worked out or not because my clients are on the app for my zone. We're in the heart rate monitor. And if they have this app, then I can see what they're tracking, right? Yeah. And if they're burning fat, and then if they cheated or not, because the goal is to get results and slow the aging process down, but to feel better from the inside out. So this way I can see if they're really keeping honest with me, because a lot of people don't tell me the whole story.
Right, and I think the idea is that the measurement is never a bad measurement. It's always a good measurement, even if you've kind of failed, which we all do. It allows you to start a conversation to say, okay, how do we move you from where you're at today, where you've had a hard time, preventing making those bad decisions, and how do we move you to allow you to have some flexibility, have some fun, but also move you forward in a good direction. And it's hard to have those conversations, I'm assuming, as a coach, if you don't have the information. So this gives you another way to have that information.
Well, we like to call them areas of opportunity. So when you have the experiences, you're like, okay, I went off the deep end here, but then how to get back on track and then, learn from those experiences. Why did I do that? Can I change that a little bit? Can I have a little more moderation and not to go to one extreme to the other and find that middle of the road so we can bounce back and forth? Yeah. Resiliency.
Exactly. And like you said, and then it also gives you the idea of metabolic flexibility, because there are going to be times where you're simply not going to be fat burning. You went to the wedding or you did something that brought you out of it, or you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
And so it's nice to have that ability to have that flexibility in and out and be able to see that real time.
That's why you dance at weddings. They're usually the only place you really dance, and then you wear off that. So
they should ban cameras at weddings for that reason.
Yeah, I'm in some people's weddings when I was in my 20s, but not anymore. In their videos, you can see me. So I wanted to give your information on the website, where to find you guys, and how people can learn more, and social media stats.
Yeah, sure. So the website is LevL, LevL Now. LevLNow.com is our website, and you can find us on all the social media outlets: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So, but yeah, come and check us out. We've got some videos. I think I'm on our website if you want to see some more videos of me for whatever reason. And we've also got lots of science and all sorts of other fun stuff about the device and measuring your fat, or understanding your fat metabolism through the measurement of breath acetone.
I think that's a main point to teach people today. For the reason we're doing this podcast episode is teach people how to measure if they're burning fat, and how to tweak your lifestyle and your nutritional habits and your exercise routine so you continue being that fat burner, because one size does not fit all, and everyone's different, unique individuals. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you got it. It was fun being on. Thanks for having me.
All right, you're number 2 of the video podcast, so hopefully everyone can listen to the podcast on audio and then go, I really want to see what Joe looks like. So listen to the words. All right, thanks so much for coming on the show today, and we'll make sure we put some notes in the show notes, or links and videos on how to use it and everything.
Sounds great.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.